So that is how we are going to use the constructor inside a class. Okay. Now coming to the next thing, like we have a class. Okay. The class properties I have declared here inside a class. Okay. Now I'm using one method. Okay. Get data is the method I'm using here. So inside that I'm not specifying any return type. If you want, you can put the return type as well. Okay. Right. So now what my intention is, like suppose 1 second. Okay. Right. So what my intention is, I am not assigning any values through the constructor and I'm not assigning any value through the method parameters. Okay. So now I have to return the values. So what are the values? Yes name. So that you have to specify. So this dot s name. So plus specifying that actually. So the meaningful message I have to provide here. Name colon this dot s name. So yes name I have to specify is colon this dot yes. Okay, plus location colon plus this dot yes location. So like this I have to define the, I have to return the values. Okay, like this I'm going to return the values. Now if you can see, I have not initialized the values, I have not defined the values, but I want to print the values. Okay, I want to return the values. Okay, so now whenever I'm creating the object, if it is a constructor, no, so then somewhere student object. So if it is a constructor, so from the constructor I'm going to initialize the values, because constructor is used to initialize the class properties. Now so what it will returns actually undefined only, because we have not defined any values. Okay, but we may have n number of objects. Okay, n number of objects. Suppose student 1, student 2 I'm specifying here, student 1 I'm specifying here. Now if I want to pass, or if you want to define some values to the class properties with the help of object, here this is an object reference variable, no? So now by using this one, so by using the dot notation, I can so initialize the values. Yes name I can initialize here. So what is the yes name I am taking here? Karna. Okay, so and also all the properties, yes name, yes should be of type integer. So the age I'm specifying some 29 here. Yes location, so that is also of string type Bangalore I'm specifying. Okay, now I want to call this, so I want to execute this one. Student, whatever the student data we have, so that student data properties I have to call this, otherwise I'll simply call that method so will accept these values and it will return the values. Okay, student dot get data, so I have called. Okay, so now so whenever I'm calling this one, so whatever the properties I have initialized, properties I have defined, that properties are belongs to student object, not belongs to student one object. Okay, not belongs to student one object. So if you can see the execution, how it will be. I hope you can see the terminal like command prompt as well also. Okay, now I'm compiling this one. Compile successfully. Executing this one. See, Karna age is equal to 29, location BLR, it will be printed. Okay, see, so that means whatever the object I have created here, so when I'm assigning with respect to that object, when I'm defining the properties with respect to that object, that should be called with respect to student one. So we have seen in the objects like in the JavaScript, this invocation will be separate in the objects. So how actually when we are passing some values, when we are calling some call method, apply method, bind method, then only the object specific properties will be tagged to that particular object. But there is no scope of like that, because we are directly using the class related objects we are using. So when we are providing, like suppose if you are providing the properties like this, okay, by using the student one object, okay, instead of student one I am providing. So these properties, whatever the properties I am providing here, so that will be belongs to student one object. No way of like student object properties are same as student one object properties. This is separate and this is separate. Okay, so now if I can take this one, so Karna, instead of that I'm placing some properties like changed HYD. Okay, like the same providing. Okay, if I call this one, so now, so with respect to student object, whatever the properties we have with respect to student object, get data method will be called. Okay, so now if I call with the help of student one, so then the student one related properties will be called. Okay, student one related properties will be called. See, I have created two objects here. I'm calling those two objects as well. See, so when I call this student one dot method, see here, I'm calling with the second object. So this is the same as object creation is same. Okay, so when I call this one, so with respect to student one, the student one object, whatever the properties we have initialized, that values are called. See, second values Krishna, same thing is okay. Karna is the first object one, second one is a Krishna. So Krishna age is 24, location is Hyderabad. So like this we are getting the values. Okay, so if you want, you can put some spaces in between that. Age is equal to name equal to, okay, anyhow, so before that we need location before, so just to identify, I mean differentiate those values. Okay, compiled successfully and executed successfully. See, the Karna is Krishna, so is, so location Bangalore, like this. So whenever I'm calling with respect to that object related properties will be called like this. Okay, this is how the method invocation will be happened. So now guys, if I want to add some parameters to it, okay, how we are going to add? Suppose ID I need to add SID. Okay, SID. So even here also you can provide the type, because it will accept both static typing and dynamic typing. S location I have provided, and also if you want, you can provide S branch, student branch you can provide. So the student branch is of type string I'm providing. Okay, like that. If you want to use those things, you can put those things. So in between that, I'm simply using one log here. So that log properties I can here log. Okay, so whatever the number comma, sorry SID comma S branch. Okay, but when we have parameters in the method, so while calling that method also, it should expect the parameters, whatever the parameters, the type of the parameters. SID is of type number, S branch is of type string. Okay, so here I am providing ID as 101, and so a branch I am taking CSC. Okay, like this. Here also, whenever how many number of times you want to call that method, that many number of times you want to provide the IDs. Okay, now you can see here, you can see here, so this student one dot get data so is separate. So student dot get data is a separate one. So because this is belongs to these properties and student object, so this is belongs to these properties, that is student one object. Okay, like that you can call and you can compile and execute. Okay, I'm recompiling it. Compiled successfully. Okay, executed. See here, so both the properties are invoked and both properties whatever I'm calling, so that will be, see, 101 it's related to first object. So and these properties are first object properties, student object. Here this is the second object, these are the second object properties. Like this it will be invoked. Okay, right. So do you have any doubts till this part? classes, class properties, methods, method parameters and accessing the methods, assigning the values to the class property, constructors, constructor method invocation, and constructor properties what we have passed. These are all the things we have covered. Okay. So if no doubts, I will move with the second part. So that is inheritance. No doubts, right? Please let me know if you have any doubts. Right. So now I'm going with the inheritance. Okay. So which is a topic. So it is also related to OOPS concepts. Inheritance. Okay. What is meant by inheritance? We might have discussed this briefly in the JavaScript. In the same thing only, inheritance will be applied here. Okay. So what is inheritance here? So and why we are using the inheritance? Okay. Inheritance is also one of the object oriented concept, object oriented principle concept, like class, object, data abstraction, so encapsulation, so inheritance like this. Okay. So where we are frequently using the inheritance. So in the in our Angular implementation, we are frequently using the inheritance as well as whatever the modules, exports, imports, what we have in the Angular classes, TypeScript classes. Here, what does it mean? Inheritance is nothing but getting the properties of, suppose there is a class that is a parent class and another class is there that is a child class. Okay, acquiring or deriving the properties and methods from the parent class. Okay, the one thing you have to say, inheritance is nothing but deriving parent class properties, props and methods into child class. Okay, so or else we can say inheriting the properties of parent class into child class. So instead of deriving, we can also use inheriting. Inheriting is nothing but acquiring the properties of parent class into child class. Inheriting the parent class properties and methods. As usual, we have only methods and properties inside a class. Okay, each and every class is a model of a particular object which is containing properties and methods of the particular object. Okay, so whatever the properties of a class, that will be so coming as it is acquiring, and the properties are belongs to the child class as well. First of all, what is meant by parent class and what is meant by child class? Any class. Okay, if we have a class, we can define like this. Suppose a person class is there. Okay, person class is there. So I'm defining the person class like this, the syntax I'm telling. Okay, so now another class, and here you have to remember one thing. In the Typescript, we can have any number of classes in a single file. So this is a single file, right? Okay, so we can specify the class some person. Okay, we can have class person and we have class student. Okay, so we can have another class teacher. Okay, so like this. So this is only a single file, but we can have any number of classes in the Typescript. Okay, but each and every class is by default having one constructor. Okay, what I said in the previous class, the constructor is only one. So for what one? Actually, for each and every class, the constructor is only one. We can't use more than one constructor in each and every class. Okay, we might, we can use any number of classes. For each and every class we can use one constructor, but whereas if it comes to the single class, that should be single constructor. Okay, so like this we can have any number of class. Okay, so now what is the relation between these classes which are there in single class only, but there is no relationship? Okay, so if it comes to the inheritance, here the person properties, the person class having some properties, the properties what we have in the previous class. Suppose the person is having some name. Okay, person name, the person name is of property type some string. Okay, person name, the string. Okay, person id is equal to person location. I'm taking here also person location I'm taking. Anything one integer value I'm taking, number value. Okay, this property. Okay, and I have one method get data. Okay, so the get data I'm using get person data. Okay, so that method I have the properties. Okay, get person data. Sorry, that is syntactical difference. The method, no, so like this I have to specify. Okay, so now whatever the data I have here and whatever the parameters I have here, so these methods and properties of person class I need to get it to the student class. That means I'm not again I'm not going to declare these properties, but so I can use these properties by using some inheritance concept. So for that, what we are going to do, so here we have one class, one keyword called extends. Okay, extends. We have also implements also, implements keyword as well. Implements will be discussed in the interfaces tab. Okay, now coming to the inheritance, here one keyword we have extends. Extending, what we are extending? We are extending one class properties from here to another class. So whatever the class we are extending, so that class is acquiring the properties of parent class. Okay, that means how we are going to extend. Okay, see the syntax here. So here the class name, the syntax, how we are defining class name. So extends keyword. So what we are going to extend? Person properties we are extending. So that means it will say it is extending the person properties to the student class. So that means whatever the data, whatever the properties and methods we have, okay, data, we can say data. So that data is by default available to student. Okay, so here it is a parent data. Okay, so the student class can be have parent data. In addition to that, child data is also available. That means by default the entire data, the properties and method, data is nothing but here properties and method. By default the data, and apart from that, so we can have the student individual data like that. If suppose one parent is there, so one father is there, father is having some properties. By default father properties are available to the child, son. Okay, but whereas son can also earn some more properties. So but those properties are only belongs to the son. It won't be belongs to the parent, because it won't it was not acquired by the parent. So from the father only whatever the data he is getting, that data, so and whatever the acquired data, so that will be in addition to that existing data, it will be available. Like that the inheritance will be happened. Okay, like that the inheritance will be happened. Okay, see, inheritance, when it comes to the inheritance, there should be one thing you have to remember. So where we are using the extends keyword, class extends keyword, and from where we are extending some person. Okay, person we are extending. Okay, so if you are giving or not, so by default one constructor will be there. So for parent class we have one constructor. Okay, even if you are not providing also, even the student is also one class, right? So that is also having one default constructor. Okay, if you want to initialize the properties with the help of this one, so this you can give him. What we are getting, so constructor. Okay, I will tell you what exactly the reason. Okay, so because it is also extending the person class, right? It is also by default we have the constructor. But whereas when it comes to the child property, so the child have one constructor. That constructor must be called one outside, whatever the super keyword we have seen, right? So super keyword we have seen in the previous class. The super keyword we can call. Okay, that we will discuss. Whereas first and foremost, each and every class is having one constructor. Okay, this is a separate class. So this is a separate class. This class is having default constructor. The student class is also having the default constructor. Okay, so here we are extending the person class to student class. I mean, so p name, p id, and get person data. So this all properties by default belongs to so this. And in addition to that, if you want, suppose student location, if you want to put student location string. Okay, so like this you can put, and student is, that is number types, you can put number like this. And also get student data, also we have a method. That is, see here, these are by defaultly available. So that means no need, when we extend the parent class to the child class, no need to define these properties. By default, automatically these properties are available to this current student class. And in addition to that, whatever the properties you are going to give inside the student class, that will also available here. That means here the main intention is getting these properties and methods from here to here, acquiring. So whenever, so we are extending that person class to the child student class from parent to child, automatically by default, if you are not defining and declaring, that will be coming as here. Okay, so now whenever we are enhancing the properties, whenever we are using the child properties, so the child properties are belongs to only child only. So these properties won't available here again. Okay, so these properties can be available here, so these properties cannot be available here. Okay, so that is only thumb rule. Okay, so this is how we are going to use the properties. But whereas if it comes to the instantiation, so now we have created an object, right? We have created an object. So like how we are creating for parent class, suppose assume this is a parent class, person is a parent class. Okay, so person is equal to new person. So like this only we have created the object. Okay, so if we create an object, the person will implicitly call this person class, whatever the person properties we have and person methods we have, so that only will be enabled for this person object. If you want to access by using this person object, we can access only pname, pid, get person data. But if you want to access s location, scs, so this won't be available with the help of person key. Now if you want to create student, okay, so that is student object you are creating with the help of student class constructor. Okay, student. Okay, then for this, by using this student object, we can call pname, pid, so get person data, s location, yes, get student data. Everything will be available because it is a child. When we are creating a student object, child object, internally the child object will call parent object. So the parent class, whatever we have the properties and methods, that will be implemented to the child class, extending the properties of parent to child. This is the only overall